Okay, time to put the metal to the pedal. Oh, wait, first up. Here. Oh, yeah, chair. Here's... I'm ready to go. Oh, wait. I can't go anywhere. Because I don't have someone beside me. I'm still just on my learner's permit. Hey there, welcome to another Toku Ramblings. Today we are talking about the series that had the Herculean, the big task of following up Kamen Rider Gaim, Kamen Rider Drive, and this show is weird. I'm not saying it's bad, I actually would say I really do like this one, but I'll get into it later. So, Drive's plot starts 6 months after a global catastrophe known as the Big Freeze, is that what it is? It's, global freeze, which essentially stops time in a literal fashion as everything goes to a little crawl as destruction reigns across numerous cities, injuring and killing countless and leaving a world suffering from a phenomenon known as heavy acceleration. You know, it was this series that kind of more or less clicked with me that, you know, Kamen Rider's universe is kind of a crummy place to live in. And what with the numerous global catastrophes that end in countless, potentially hundreds of thousands of deaths. I mean, that was the whole Helheim stuff last year. I don't think I need to explain the numerous amount of Heisei Phase 1 disasters that killed lots of people. But you don't realize how screwed up the world is when you realize the amount of catastrophes there are. Anywho, while many people do survive physically, some are left with mental trauma in the case of Shinosuke Tamari, a rising star in the Tokyo PD, the Hana trail of an evil organization. And when the global freeze screws with his aim when he's trying to save his friend from one of the suspects, severely injuring him and leaving Shinosuke a shell of who he was, relegating him to the Special Investigation Unit, or SIU, which has been tasked with dealing with incidents of heavy acceleration, which includes Officer and Star member Kiriko Shijima, HQ Chief Jun Hongunji, God, I cannot say some words tonight. Mechanical Specialist Rina Sawagami, Network Researcher Q Saijo, and their liaison with 1st Division Genpachi Ota. But there's more to the SIU because, of course, there's more to the SIU. A talking belt that Shinosuke becomes when he is given a fancy new car and reveals the truth behind the global rise. It was caused by a new mechanical species known as the Roid Mu, who desire to replace humans as the dominant species on the planet. With the power of the shift, or Shinosuke and the entire SIU when they learn. Well, specifically Kiriko's the only one who innately knows it. And Rina, as it's revealed, is primarily the mechanical specialist. And Jun. Look, there's a lot of secrets going on. Shinosuke becomes Kamen Rider Drive in order to fight the Roid Muse and stop their plans of world dominations. And soon enough, they're joined by a secondary rider in Go Shijima. Kiriko's rubber, who had been traveling around the world, but returns with his own henshin device to become Kamen Rider Monk as they discover conspiracies within the police realm in their fight against the Roid Muse. So, Drive, I feel, has 2 clear points to it. The first portion, which is very much in line with Sanjo's previous writer work on Double, a more episodic 2-part stories dealing with specific mysteries which are solved by the end of each arc, and I would still say the mystery arcs are still really well done when compared to Double. it's about at the midpoint, I'd say. Like, after a 4-episode small miniseries that delves into the org, and it's about why the SIU was formed the way it was, the series dips a lot more dark. I wouldn't say it's Gaim levels of dark, but it's hard to tell if the decision was made because people wanted a story more in line with Gaim's darker tone, or if this was intended from the get-go. It's hard to tell because Tokus never really talk about their development cycle that much, so it's hard to tell if this was an intentional thing done or if it was last-minute changes to more or less appease the more drive-oriented fans. So, like, one of those things about this show feeling like two separate entities is, like, the initial part of the show can be hard to get through if you are not fond of over-the-top humor or just sometimes the face humor of, like, or just that sort of like characters like, to end the chief. It's telling that when Go shows up, who is also very much on a high scale of the extra, they write out Chief June for a few episodes. That was because they realized, okay, this might be a bit too much crazy. And yeah, I can sort of see why some people might not be fun. But this class grew on me a lot. Some a lot slower than others, but no, I really like Shinovsky. Like, he felt like a really good combination of, like, the double. Right? Or, like, specifically, like, like, he had Shoto's kind of dorky goofball, half-boiled personality mixed with Philip's intelligence. And later, once we get to like, the main, like, his final power form, he more or less ends up having some similar tragic backstory stuff with Rio. I do overall prefer, like, the double Rise of Philip and Shotaro, mostly because I feel like they're willing to play off one, never really push them beyond onto, like, being one of my top writers. But what works here, but this works for Sasuke. Like, he has his goofy moments, but he knows when to take a situation seriously and show why he used to be and still potentially is a star member of the Tokyo P. And, when others are hiding stuff from him, especially belts on Kirik Rina, he's rightfully aggravated at more or less they're hiding stuff they're being upfront with him. And even so, he still shows some moments on him more or less rushing too far into things when he initially tries to overclock himself to beat hard early in the season. I think the relationship that he and Kiriko built over the story is really natural and one of the better relationships. A lot better than more or less Sanjo's previous writer relationship, I can more or less. That I really enjoyed. And that sort of goes for, like, his belt, which is actually, he really works well as the mentor of this season, showing anger and respect Shinosuke whenever he's doing something stupid again with the whole freeze stuff, but he's shown to not be perfect and is willing to admit when he is wrong about something and help them when he needs to help them. I also really like the booming voice they give. It just really works for what a henchman should be. And the SIU, again, I more or less don't think are initially going to win everyone over with how extra they are. So basically, Hongonji reads a bunch of horror description always bemuses more as how much the group is suffering budget-wise. Q's the goofy, creepy one is always on his computer, and Mollis has this weird dull with it. Rena's the gadgeteer genius who just can't seem to get a date to save her life, and Joe is again sort of mean-faced guy. He initially serves as their liaison with the main brand, but serves also as a bit of a sketch. The only one, again, that doesn't initially have a quirk is, again, who serves as a good foil to Shinosuke. Like, serious, focused to the point, and she is constantly wanting to help as much as she. And, that is something I can give over a lot of other female. This is that she legitimately wants to help, and more or less what she gets, like shoes, which don't really get used much as the show goes on. She does have some legitimately awesome moments. I'm not gonna lie here, and she does have good chemistry with both Shinosuke and later her brother, which more or less has some of the best chemistry I think the show. I think that always has been a strength of Sanjo as a writer. He gives good chemistry between his actors, and again, as the show goes on, even before he kind of change up in overall tone, we get to know a lot more about the support that makes him a lot better characters. I think Q, especially once with the episode where he befriends a Roy Muden, was one of the first instances of portraying Roy Muden in a positive light, and I'll get to that when we get there. Yeah, because that's an issue I think the series has, but I feel everyone more or less gets the episodes that really help to make them much better characters instead of just the comic relief at the end. Moving on to the additional members of the team, there's the main secondary writer, which, as stated before, initially comes in as a rather kooky, dandy individual that more or less required them putting one of the cast members on the bus for a bit because it would have turned like an 11 to a 15. The early portions of Drive do give him a couple of character bits, like when he gets jealous of how much stronger Tamari is getting and demands a power up to match him, but comes into his own conclusion of getting stronger, which I do think was more or less a highlight of his early half. It's the second half where they make some changes to his own, which sparks some notable changes. So we go about the time that our tertiary writer is introduced. Goes from the dandy man with a frill for the theatrics to a more serious, troubled, and at times angry man with a vin against the roid mutes for what they represent to him. And it honestly works a lot more to really heighten the character. Especially his relationship he gets with Chase makes her one of the better dynamics in the show to make him a lot more layered and fascinating than what he was innately. And yes, he sort of steals a similar plot point to what happened in Forza for a bit longer, but I do think it works a little better for in comparison to that, which I will get to when I get to Forza, and I'm probably also more biased just because his character arc has probably one of the best endings to any main villain confrontation at all. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it says go. Of all of the changes to happen in the last half of this, the best part is more or less what happens with Chase, who initially starts as a villain enforcer for for the Roy Muse is sort of this cold, stoic, serious soldier to contrast the more charismatic heart and goofier psyche, is which also kind of goes with the whole kookier aspects of the show. He was a rarely good, like, consistent threat the heroes had to face for a long time, especially the stuff we learn about him and his past before the Great Freeze makes him one of the best redemption arcs, especially what happens with Medic, and just how he is after joining with him is arguing things and calling out Shinosuke for losing, for getting overly heated, especially regards to his father, his death, his growth in humanity from his interactions with the Shijima. So, like, his sacrifice at the end is one of the best endings a writer has gotten, in my opinion. He ends up becoming the heart of the entire essay. You and the writers tuning that in helping to make them more grounded at their most vulnerable and angry points. He is arguably the best character the series has going for it, and that leads us into the villains. And okay, this is one of those things where I say that more or less it's hard to tell if this was intentional or retool things, because I feel the Roid Muse are good because Sanjo is clearly trying to make something different from the standard Toku villains, because they are fighting because they want to their own place in the world. It's a survival of the fittest thing. And they don't see themselves as evil. Well, one of them does, but Heart's more of a noble demon who shows compassion to. He seeks the thrill of combat against Shinosuke as he grows stronger, and when less Freeze kills Shinosuke, he's more angry that he might not reach evolution because of it. He's deeply disturbed when Medic begins to call the other Roid. It was because he doesn't see them as expendable, he sees them as his friends. And he's very much one of the closest examples of an anti-villain in the main villain role, and his end, again, this is a series that really ends strong, if you couldn't tell from what I'm saying. Here makes him one of the more interesting foes that Rider has faced, and sort of the rest of the villains in the show are less consistent. Brain's weird in that in the first few episodes he seems almost on the same level as Heart in the organization, even criticizing his actions. And then only a few episodes later he's basically just a devoted follower of Heart who, may or may not love him in that way. And just move on from there. And it's just the butt monkey at the Free General. Well, I like the point where he kind of returns to being a more competent friend when he infiltrates the police department as a member of Division 1 alongside another really good surprise villain. I won't spoil for this rare. But after that, he's back to being a butt monkey, specifically for the last of the General's Medic, who, despite her namesake, is much colder, brutal, and callous compared to her. She is entirely defined by her devotion to Heart and more or less getting the best out of the Roid mutants. So much so she sees no problem in calling out the rest of the Roid mutants, which even Shinosuke calls out as, wow, dick move. move. But this is where we get into the issue of more or less. The show wants us to sympathize with the Ride Muse as an anti-villain. They're just trying to etch out their place in the world. Here's the issue, though. There's not enough of these anti-villainous Ride Muse to more. Let's make that a thing. It doesn't help that at the initial first 2 episodes, our second main arc has a Ride Muse who kidnaps women and turns them in. And depending on more or less, they're still alive doing it. Anyway, I'm not saying they could have done more. But the only real anti-villainous Ride Muse are Heart, of course, because the number all chill do, and Ride Muse 072, who more or less just wants to enjoy the otaku life before medicals. Yeah. Everyone else is either just a straight criminal, or more or less someone who's just doing it for their own selfish desires. And that leads to Dr. Tenjiro Bano. No, Kiriko goes far. And, I like test trolling, like evil kinds of villains who are complete and utter scum bags, and it does turn Go and Krim into much entirely different people when it involves him, but it's that issue of more or less I feel like he was created because the writers realized they didn't have enough Ride Muse who were sympathetic. So, here's the villain who explains why a lot of them are evil. Evil because he made them evil, because he influenced negative emotions into them. See, they're sympathetic. They more or less are bad because of another person. It just... This is a case of more or less the villains feel like they... This is a case of a villain who, well, I do like, is introduced trying to put a bandage on a situation that they forgot to more or less change going into it. I'd like Bana a lot more if the Ride Muse were a lot more anti-villainous, and then he came in and more or less turned up their worser traits. Aesthetically, I think Drive is overall all good. My initial concern was like the attire that more or less is that generally more or less Drive gets, and all of his songs would be a little, specifically in speed form, just felt really big, bloated more or less but it got better. And I think the balance of red and black really works well. Here the belt is definitely unique for the series, seeing as how it's one of the few that has a secondary activation trick in the form of the brace to connect the cars. I'm not the fondest of the shift cars, not in the way of, it's a toy. It's clearly meant to be a toy. It's just, I think the issue I have with like the little shift cars is that I don't think they look too interesting, and the way they flick is not most satisfying. I also think it doesn't help that there are so many of them, and some just get pushed to the side mostly. There is a detail I like about the belt. I like the Typhoon-esque design it gets. It's when it's in the like standby for the hench. Which is there's a couple of old show references like the Ride Muse forms when they have yet to evolve into something like the paint or steel. You got the standard trio of bat, spider, and snake. I think the mock driver Hono, apparently they call it that because copyright reasons with another golf franchise makes the same sound that the original Typhoon made. Drive's initial 3 suits are of all things a homage to Black RX, because Black RX was the first series to use a car, and it's the second one, but its second form is a powerhouse, and the other is a more brain, using its mind form of things. I think both forms look fine. I would say I like Wild's form a bit more. Technics, the tire replacement makes it look like Drive has no neck when he has it on it. That's sort of an issue here. I'm on the fence regarding Typhoon. Because it's literally Drive as a formula car. He has the stickers on the feet. He has the wheels on his head. He has the nice big finish in the back and the protruding chest. This is again one of those on the fence things of either you think it's really cool looking or it just looks over-designed and overly busy and bulky in the wrong. Hey, but I do like the trailer truck cannon weapon he gets with this. I'm gonna give credit that a lot of the weapons Drive gets are unique. I like the steering wheel blade, the door gun box, like a little wheelie gun thing, and then of course the signal axe. Wait for it. But all of Drive's main form is just pale in comparison to Type Trideron, which is just is. Well, it is excellent. It is perfection in final form. The full red, the white line, the tires. There's the singular black arm, which more or less works well with the new tire combinations. I think the head really works. If more or less Type formula was not a good way to implement a car into the upper body, this really does it. I don't know what else to say. I really think this is one of the better looking final forms the series has ever done. On to the secondary riders. For Mach, I like the primary. Works well with all the colors, and the tire on the side is really good looking. The kind of mix between Mach and the dead heat power, I think looks really good. I think it looks better on Mach than it does Shinosuke. And it more or less clearly is more meant for him. And the henshin form are more or less it's activated. It's like a car driving off. That's also really nice. I'm a little more mixed on Chase. I like the kind of more innately put together aspect of the Roy. Views there are these mechanical abominations. But before we get to Roy's views, Chase's rider form, I think it's an issue of more or less. I think it's a lack of color overall. I don't think the silver meshes well with the purple to an extent, like the white does with the red. I think it still looks decent, but I think it's just a color thing. I'm not fond of the silver and purple in my opinion. Also, they more or less kit bash the two at the end for a power up from Mach against his father. Bono gets a golden drive form after he takes over one of them, and to show how much he's the anti-Crim. I think it most looking at it, and I wouldn't say it's the best looking form. I just don't think it mixes well. It either should have been full one thing or the other, but it just doesn't look that great. I think a lot of the tracks in this show are really good. The main theme is heart pumping. At least, though, I kind of more or less can't really remember the other inserts. Though, then again, inserts are never played that consistently unless it's like a main thing. But, Drive is a weird, bumpy road. I would say, if I were to compare it to Sanjo's previous work with Double, Drive dips and valleys dips and valleys a lot more than Double. Double was like consistently like amazingly great until like the ending more or less kind of dropped the ball in certain aspects. But like I can more or less say that in certain aspects, especially near the end, Drive has higher pointed reaches. But this is definitely not going to be a series for everyone, especially if you can't get past the opening portion. So it's more comedic, well, over-the-top comedic tone. If you're not fond of that, then the series is going to annoy you. And if you don't find the change over to be natural, then you'll feel like they're just kind of trying to pander to that. But, you know, I really like Drive. I thought it was a really solid writers series that got really, really good writing. And if you skipped it because it was too kooky and stupid, I'd give it a try. As always, do the usual things to keep the YouTube algorithm good for me. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, maybe Reddit, and yeah, see you around.